Hey, family. Unfortunately, one of the worst statistics that we have in today's society is that over 50%, yes, 50% of people who get married, the same people who say, I love you, I always want to be with you, like you're the love of my life, we're never ever going to get divorced, end up getting divorced. And it's all because of one reason. Yes, one reason. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, okay, it's finances or communication or even sexual relations. Well, all of those are true, but all of those are summed up in one reason and one reason only. And that one reason why people get divorced is that one person, usually it's both people, but at least one person asks one question: what about me? What about me? He doesn't treat me this way, or she doesn't do that for me. And they get this in their head and they start thinking about themselves instead of thinking of the other person. And they miss the whole concept of marriage when the man and the woman became one flesh. When they started thinking about the other person and not just themselves, they started thinking about themselves and they separated themselves. By thinking of themselves, they separated themselves from the marriage. And it became my marriage and your marriage instead of our marriage. And so they started thinking about themselves instead of the other person or both of them. It became this disconnect. And that disconnect came a separation that God didn't intend for them to do. And Paul shares this beautifully in Ephesians chapter 5. In verse 28 says, in the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one has ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we're all members of the same body. You see, when a man and woman get married, they leave their husband, they leave they leave their mom, they leave their dad, and they become one flesh. So that person, that spouse, is you. And if you really love them, you will treat them not how you feel like you should treat them, not how they think they deserve to treat them, but you'll treat them just like you would treat yourself, because you would never, ever treat yourself bad on purpose. You would never say a mean word to yourself on purpose. You would never push your own button on purpose. If you were hungry, you know what? That person should say, hey, are you hungry too? If you're thirsty and you want a glass of water, well, they're a human being and they're your wife or they're your husband. Let me ask if they want a glass of water too. Imagine this. Imagine if both people, the husband and the wife, imagine if both husband and wife, instead of saying, well, what about me? What if they said, well, what about them? Whoa, wouldn't that be a game changer? If both people, instead of trying to just think about themselves, what if they try to outserve each other? What if they woke up in the morning and was like, you know what? I'm going to outserve my wife today. I'm going to treat her better than she could ever treat me. Or the husband, or the opposite way, the wife saying to the husband, you know what? I'm going to outserve him. I mean, that would be a really good, healthy competition. Because if both people were so concerned with the other person more than they were themselves, if they started being selfless instead of selfish, and they were more concerned about the other person, they could never say, what about me? And they would never, ever want a divorce, because they treated the other person like themselves and they were treated like the other person liked to be treated. And there would be this mutual oneness that God intended marriage to be, where it was the man and the woman together as one flesh under God. So husbands and wife, instead of loving them like you think they should be loved, start loving them like you want to be loved. Because you wouldn't do half the stuff that you do to them to yourself. So start loving them like you want to be loved. And isn't that basic Bible principle to love others and treat others like you want to be treated? So let's start doing that. All right, family. Have a blessed day.